Welcome to the Regen Brands Podcast, the place for brands, retailers, investors, and other food system stakeholders to learn about the consumer brands supporting regenerative agriculture and how they're changing the world. I'm your host, AC. Thanks for tuning in. Now let's get into today's conversation. On this episode, we're diving into the incredible origin story of Jasberry with the company's co-founder and CEO, Neil. You'll hear how a life-changing high school friendship, a Google search for the world's best rice scientist, and 2 years living in rural Thailand all led to a new superfood rice brand that you can now find on shelves at every Whole Foods nationwide. We unpack Jasberry's mission to tackle generational farmer poverty, the science behind their superfood purple rice, and why organic and regenerative rice farming is actually lowering costs and producing higher yields for the farmers they partner with. Neil also shares how Jasberry works with 2,500 rice farmers in Thailand who now earn 14 times the national average, why they're focused on expanding into food service for their next phase of growth, and how they're dealing with a new brutal 19% tariff. Let's dive in. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Regen Brands Podcast. Very excited today to have my friend Neil from Jasberry with us, calling in from the early morning hours in Bangkok. So thank you, Neil, for making some time for us, man, and working on time zone differences with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Anthony.
Neil, for those that have not tried your incredible products just yet or aren't familiar with the brand, can you share what products y'all make today and where can people find them here in the States?
Well, our core product is called Jasberry Superfood Rice. So in this new variety of superfood rice. So basically why is it a superfood, right? Because rice is just typically a commodity product. But this variety of rice is super special in that it has 40 times more antioxidant than brown rice, 7 times more than kale, and 4 times more than quinoa. It has approximately 30% higher protein content, high fiber. It's good for gut health. We actually done research on gut health as well. So it's just this delicious and nutritious purple rice. And you can find this Jasberry Superfood rice at every Whole Foods stores in the country, on Amazon, Thrive Market, online, and most organic and natural retailer around the country, whether it's Sprouts or Erewhon or Mother's Market, Giant, and we are launching in Target in California in October.
Let's go.
So yeah, that's basically Whole Foods is probably the biggest national retailer that we work with.
Yeah,
and then we have in both like stovetop and ready to heat. So you can have it in uncooked, and you have the ready to heat where it's just 90-second, and we have just the original and other things like coconut, 9 grams of green curry as well, just to give variety to your dishes.
Yeah. I mean, the product's phenomenal. I love the ready to eat. It's ready so quick. I mean, I feel like I'm the average American consumer that's kind of hooked on convenience. So my girlfriend and I are definitely consuming a good amount of that in our rice rotation as we try and support all the various regenerative brands. And I buy it at Whole Foods, just like you mentioned. So super cool. I think the website does a really good job of telling this story, but I would love for you to share with the audience here as well of why you guys started the brand. And it really kind of all comes down to trying to increase farmer livelihoods where you're from in Thailand. So tell us about that.
Yeah, there's probably a few ways I can tell this story.
Yeah.
But I think it's very personal to me because I was born here in Thailand, but I grew up in Australia. So I moved there when I was 14 years old. And it was really difficult for me because when I moved there, I didn't really speak English. And I was the only Asian kid in a school, 1,000 kids. All boys school. So as you could imagine, it was not easy.
Yeah.
To say the least, that I looked different than everyone, and I didn't really speak the language very well. So I went through a really difficult time in my childhood, adjusting to everything. And as young boys, there's a lot of bullying, a lot of racism, a lot of
Yeah.
all the fun stuff,
Yeah.
fighting and whatnot. So I definitely, had a really difficult experience kind of growing up. But one of the boys became really close friend with me. His name was Duncan. This is in
Mm,
Canberra, Australia, and we became really good friends. So Duncan is a really typical Aussie guy. Blonde hair, blue eyes, good at everything, every sport. He's a surfer.
yeah.
It's a very like typical Australian, kid, and we just became really good friend over the next couple of years.
Mhm.
And I'm sharing this story because one day we were going to an excursion at the Sydney Opera House. So we're sitting on a bus, and we were 16
Yeah.
years old. And I remember us talking, and I asked him, I said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And he said, "I want to go to Africa and start a school for underprivileged children. Children that couldn't
Wow.
afford to go to school." And he asked me, he said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I was 16, and I said, "I want to go back to my country and work in forest conservation
Wow.
to protect the rainforest in the country." And that's a good reason for that, because growing up I had this idol who was a conservationist, a Thai gentleman who grew up in a really poor family of farmers. He got a scholarship to England, came back to Thailand, and worked for the government in the area of forest conservation. But
Mm.
because at the time there was a lot of illegal logging and just illegal extraction of natural resources, his work disrupted a lot of that. And as it turned out, a lot of uh, I guess capitalists were not happy with him, and they killed some of his team members just to threaten
Wow.
him. And one day, he wrote a letter. I think he was around 4 years old. He got a gun and shot himself in the head,
Oh.
and just to protect his family because they had threatened to kill his family.
Wow.
And but his death started the biggest environmental movement in Thai history. And now
Wow.
we have the largest UNESCO protected rainforest in Southeast Asia because of him. And he
Wow.
saved, probably billions of wildlife, right? Animals. And so growing up, he was kind of my idol. And, I really look up to people like him in particular, but even like Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi. And I was really fascinated by people that were really driven by purpose. And I was like, man, if I could one day wake up every day and do something that I believe in so much that I'm willing to give my life for,
Yeah.
I think that would be something like amazing. So that was as a kid, that was kind of how I was driven. And
What
Sub
what was his
Nakasatian is
name,
his
Neil?
name. Yeah, Sub Nakasatian is his name. He's
Okay.
actually one of the, well, he is the most famous environmental conservationist in our history. But also now, as I mentioned, we have the largest UNESCO protected rainforest in Southeast Asia, which is home to billions of animals. And that's just, through his work and his death. And I
Yeah.
think that was just, something very inspirational to me. So I told Duncan, look, I'm going to go home. I'm going to do what
Mm.
he did. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to like try to continue his work, and his foundation still exists. And I'm glad to say, actually, Jasperry had a chance to collaborate with his foundation as
Wow.
well, which is
Amazing.
awesome. But unfortunately, I never got to meet him because he passed
Yeah.
away when I was quite young. But yeah, like fast forward 10 years, I was 26 and I was an investment banker. Okay,
Mm.
so
Not forest conservation.
yeah, no, not forest conservation is, I went to a top university in Australia, and then, life happened, right? You get a good
Yeah.
job. And I remember I got a newsletter from my school, and this was my high school, and you rarely look at a newsletter, right? Like they send it twice a year
Yeah.
to you, and it's mostly asking for money or
Yeah.
donation of some sort. So I graduated high school a long time ago, and then for some reason I look at this particular magazine, and then I open it, and it had an alumni section where they interview alumni, and I saw a photo of Duncan, and I recognized him straight away. We haven't
Wow.
spoken for literally since we graduated, which was like 8 years ago, and back then we didn't have Facebook or any way
Yeah.
to keep in touch, so we
Yeah.
had lost touch. And I saw an article of him, the same guy, like straight away. I saw, kind of blonde hair, blue eyes. He was surrounded by African kids. So I started reading this
Wow.
article, and he actually went to university to study education, became an educator, and got a national government scholarship. And he moved to Africa to pursue his dream, and he
Mm.
and he did it. And so the next day, I quit my job, and
Wow.
and I left, my job, and I kind of went back to really try to find my purpose in life.
Mm.
And I guess that origin story is important because when we say like why we do what we do, I think a lot of it you have to thank Duncan, and he doesn't notice 'cause we've lost touch. I don't know where he is today, but
Yeah.
he reminded me like what's really important in life and what's important to me in particular. So Jasperry was a continuation of that purpose.
Yeah.
Um, and instead of, I guess, working with the forest conservation,
Mhm.
I now work with farmers.
Yeah. Dude, we gotta get this podcast recording in Duncan's hands, in his ears, so he could know the effect he's had on you, man. That's an incredible story. Um, so you had that realization, you quit the job, and you moved from Australia to Thailand, correct?
Yes. So at the time that I did investment banking, it was an international position. So I was moving a lot between Tokyo and Hong Kong and
Okay.
various different countries. I already moved out of Australia at that point.
Okay. So how did you land on working with farmers and starting Jasberry once you were back in Thailand?
Yeah. So I was studying a lot of different environmental and social issues in the country, and I was looking at the biggest one, like waste management. And then I realized how corrupted it was. So it was funny because I ran into the same problem that my idol ran into, and I
Mm.
didn't necessarily want to die at an
Yeah.
early age. I
Yeah.
suppose. But yeah, I one of the biggest thing was that Thailand was the world's number one rice exporter.
Mhm.
About 17 million people in Thailand are farmers. It's 25% of the country, or one in four person. And I didn't even know that because growing up in Bangkok, it's a pretty big metropolitan city like Los Angeles or New York. You know,
Yeah.
you're not really aware of the rest of the country,
Yeah.
right? And then you realize that, wow, there are just many farmers, and our farmers are among the poorest in the world, earning just 40 cents a day or six times
Ugh.
below the poverty line.
Ugh.
So like the UN define extreme poverty as anything less than $2 per day. So 40 cents per day is definitely very low by any
Yikes.
standard. So when I came across this issue, it just fascinated me. So as at the time I was doing my MBA here in Bangkok, which is actually a joint program with Kellogg in the United States and
Oh, nice.
Northwestern. So I
Yeah.
did part of my program at Kellogg, and it's a chance for me to explore something. So I went to the northeastern part of the country, which is the most impoverished region in the country, and
Mhm.
I just went to see these farmers, and I said, "Hey, I'm a student and I want to do a research on organic farming." So I wasn't totally honest with them because I wanted to be a social entrepreneur and I wanted to start a social business that would help
Yeah.
change their lives. But I imagine if I was a kid going to this community and saying all these things, they would think I'm crazy, right? I had no
Yeah.
credibility. So I said, look, I was a student and I'm doing this research on the impact of organic farming on their communities and on their lives. So I started going to these farmers who were already pioneers in doing organic farming in the country. And in
Mm.
fact, the very first farmer I worked with, and this is 10 years back, is the leading regenerative farmer in the country. He's been doing
Wow.
regenerative farming for like 40 years. So
Let's
he
go.
started this whole regenerative before you even have regenerative in the
Yeah.
West, right?
Yeah.
This guy did way beyond, right? Plant
Yeah.
diversity, build diversity in the field, how to measure that, like just non-GMO seeds, breeding. So it was a lot of knowledge, and that was
Mhm.
already being implemented. So basically, yeah, we I started there, and I started to learn about their lives, and how the I guess the systematic poverty was created for generations because these farmers' debt has tripled over the last 10 years. So
Mm.
it's gotten worse and worse, and the average age is over 60 years old. So
Right.
also, you're looking at the future, right? Like the sons and daughters don't want to become farmers. So they go into the city to drive taxi or
Yeah.
right do labor work, which cause even more social issues. So so yeah, basically like all of that, I was able to live with the farmers really for the first 2 years. I just live with the
Wow.
community. um, an interesting fact is that they also don't speak a regular Thai language. They have their own dialect. So I had to learn another language just to fit in with the
Wow.
community. So
Wow.
if they wasn't difficult enough,
Yeah.
they speak a different language than
Wow.
let's say an average Thai person, definitely in Bangkok. So
Yeah.
you have to learn this additional language, and so I spent those years learning the language, and so that when I sit and talk with them, I could speak like them, and like a local person. And so
Yeah.
it was definitely the start because a lot of that knowledge and the feedback and what I learned from the community became uh, how we build a business model at Jasperry, because it was
Mm.
always important for me. Like I saw a lot of social entrepreneurs at the time, right? They would, let's say, go from Europe to Africa and they start something, but they didn't
Mhm.
speak the local language. They didn't understand the local culture.
Mhm.
And for us, for these farmers, we say like rice is life. They grow this for subsistence living, to feed their family first and foremost. It wasn't even
Mhm.
for economic reason, because really honestly, at 40 cents a day, there's not much economic um,
Yeah.
probably consideration, right, being put
Yeah.
into their lives. But rice was something that they grew up with, that their grandparents, their parents grew up with, and it's what they eat. So first and foremost, it's for survival, and there's a big component of the cultural fabric in all of this. It wasn't just a matter of hey, we want a better life, or it's
Mhm.
also about the culture itself and how rice is so intertwined into their everyday life, into their families, even their religious ceremony. They
Mm.
use rice in their religious ceremony, so
Wow.
it's very different than someone who comes from Bangkok, right? Who
Mhm.
just don't never seen a rice field, who right? So I think like it was important for me to have those 2 years to be with them in the home, to work in the field with them, and just for them to tell me about their life. And I think that gave me the foundation of the understanding of how I want to build this business in a way that is nurturing to them and their community as well as the planet.
Mhm. And you were able, Neil, during that time to kind of be amongst farmers that were organic and regenerative and also maybe ones that weren't and see kind of like some sort of stark divide between the 2?
Yeah, definitely. It was almost like a cult of some sort. It was a way of life. I mean,
Yeah.
because even I started visiting many local cooperatives in the northeastern region.
Mhm.
Some was like had a Christian ethos. So like no alcohol, no gambling. Like they had this whole structure around the cooperative. So it
Mhm.
wasn't just regenerative farming. It was a way of life. It's a belief system. How you treat the earth, how you treat the soil. how you treat the
Mhm.
animals. It was very like philosophical, whereas
Mhm.
the people who use chemicals had bought into that system. Like, well, organic
Mhm.
is never going to work. It's going to have low yield, right? And you need to put in more and more chemical fertilizer to get a better output. So there was all this different belief system, especially a divide between the chemicals and the organic farmers. So really, like a lot of funny story. I would go and sit with a farmer,
Yeah.
and I'll be like, okay, can you break down the cost of what you do? And of course,
Mm.
none of them know the cost, right? And me, I graduated as an engineer, so I was very like logical.
Yeah.
And and literally after I think like 4 hours of sitting down with them and them like telling me like a million things, I still don't know the cost of of the farming, you know? So it was like very challenging
Yeah.
to understand it economically.
Mhm.
Because they'll be like, okay, I put all this in, and I'm like, okay, so how much do you put in, and how
Mm.
often, and they'll like forget. They'll be like a few times a month, like, and so it was definitely it took me some time to really understand the economics of it. But to
Yeah.
cut a long story short, the organic farmers had a much lower cost and over a period of time had a much higher yield. Not
Mm.
for the first, 2 years probably because the soil
Mhm.
was still being um let's say recovering. We call
Right.
like salty soil when you put a lot of chemical fertilizer in and the soil become very hard, which then prevents any living organism from living in the
Yeah.
soil, like
Right.
earthworms and so forth, and all kind of bacteria. So basically, we saw that long term, these organic farmers were enjoying a much better economic output, and we also started to learn a different technology of different type of organic fertilizer that can be used to even enhance that.
Mm. Okay. So you have basically this focus on the farmers and poverty issues in the country. You have this really deep experience in community with those folks, learning about them, learning a whole new language, seeing the differences in their livelihoods and way of lives if they are kind of more of this organic regenerative approach. When does the opportunity for the specific superfood rice that y'all have, when does that come in? And when does, hey, I'm gonna start a food brand and sell it in the US? Like how did both of those things come about?
Yeah, I had this very simple concept about starting this, which is that I needed a world class innovation, something that would add value to people's life. Because I
Yeah.
saw a lot of local community, even back then, trying to sell organic rice. It's still
Hmm.
a commodity. People
Right.
look at it like, oh, it's just rice. I mean, great, it's organic. And maybe they'll pay 10% more, which which really doesn't cover all the costs even of converting to organic in the early years. And I explained to you the higher yield doesn't kick in like until the third year.
Right.
So really it's economically challenging. And I'm a big believer in the free market. So
Mm.
I looked to social entrepreneur at the time, Muhammad Yunus, whom I had a pleasure to meet, who created Grameen Bank, like Bank for the Poor. So he wrote a
Mm.
whole book about their social business, and I think that for me, we needed an innovation that's gonna add so much value to consumers' life.
Mm.
And so at the time, I was a student, and I remember talking to my friend. I said, "Well, what if we have the best rice innovation on the planet?" And
Mm.
they look at me like, you mean like from where?" And I said, well, just just a simple thought, right? The best rice innovation on the planet would come from the best rice scientists on the planet. It would make sense.
Mm.
It would be the
Yeah.
smartest rice scientists on the planet. And they were like, well, how are you gonna find this person? And I said, like, Google. and it was like, you know, almost 10 years back. So I Google a bunch of rice scientists, and I found my guy. I was like, okay, this guy, he's like the equivalent of the Nobel Prize winner, right?
That's
Scientist,
awesome. That's
which
awesome.
is super funny. And lucky for me, he's Thai and not Brazilian.
There you
And
go.
it makes sense. It makes sense because we're the biggest rice country that
Yeah.
we would have, right? Rice researcher. And he specializes in rice genomics, which is natural crossbreeding of rice variety. So he
Mm.
would naturally crossbreed different variety, which could take up to like 10, 15 years because it takes a long time because it's not
Yeah.
non-GMO, rice breeding. So I remember I asked one of my friends to send him a letter to his university for a meeting, and we didn't get any response after weeks. And I said, "Well, okay, why don't we just call him?" And and at the time, they were like, "What? Wait, you have his phone number?" And me being an investment banker, I Googled the thing and I got his mobile number. I was good at finding information, and I called him as an MBA student, and he picks up the phone. And again, this is one of the most distinguished researcher on the planet, and
Yeah.
especially in the field, right? He is right at the
Yeah.
time. He's been doing it for more than 30 years, and I call him and I gave him a 30-second pitch. Cause I call him and he's like, "Who's this?" And I said, "I'm like, I just need a few minutes of your time.
Yeah.
It is really, really important. Like it's life
Mm.
changing, and I need just a few minutes." Um, and he's like, "I'm in a meeting," and I'm like, "Just a few minutes. Can you step out of the meeting and just hear me out?" So we ended up just talking for maybe 5 minutes because he was in the middle of a meeting. And the next day, I drove 3 hours to his house, and we spent 5 hours together at his house the very next day.
Wow.
And basically, to cut a long story short, this genius scientist um, told me about kind of all his research, which blew my mind. He bred rice that are resistant to flooding, resistant to drought, rice for diabetic people. Like he
Mm.
just had all this like rice lying around,
Rice mad
and
scientist, man. I love it.
yeah, and I was like, wow. And then he said, and then I told him what is like his greatest innovation, and he
Mm.
said, I have this rice that is the healthiest rice in the world. Right, the
Mm.
nutrition is off the chart. So I said, okay, let me try to eat it because if it doesn't taste good, like no one's gonna eat it, right? Because
Right. Right.
right? Thai people are really big on food, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So I ate the rice and this dark purple rice, and it was delicious. It was aromatic. It was soft, despite being
Yeah.
cooked. But man, I want to eat this. I want to eat this rice every day. Like, why don't we have this rice in the world?
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I'm a researcher. Like, I just do research, right?
Mm.
My job is it's not to bring it, right? I don't know how to bring it to the world because, you know."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, what is your goal in life? Like, you already like accomplished everything as a researcher. So what is there left for you? I mean,
Mm.
you're the best of what you do. Like, what are you trying to accomplish?" He said, "Well, I hope
Yeah.
that one day my innovation can help farmers have a better life."
Wow.
And I hope farmers, not just in Thailand, but around the world. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start a social enterprise that's one day is going to help millions of farmers, but
Mm.
also for the consumers eating your rice, their life is also going to be transformed
Yeah.
as well. Right. And so that's kind of how it started. And the funny story was that this particular rice research, one of the biggest agricultural conglomerate in the world had approached him. This is like 10 years back, right? Offer him $5 million to buy this research.
Wow.
And he said no. So
Wow.
and he's not a
Bef
wealthy
This was
guy,
before he met you,
right?
Neil, or after?
Even before he met me.
Wow.
And it was literally like 6 months before he met me. So he told
Yeah.
me this story. When I asked him why does he do what he do and what he wants to accomplish in life, he told me his story, and he said, "Well, like money is not important to me. Like what is
Mhm.
important to me is impact and the change I can make in the world." But as a researcher, right, he had no idea about the business and
Yeah.
commercialization and all of that. So that's where I came in, and really it was a pairing between this incredible research
Yeah.
and the local community and building the bridge between technology or earth science, um, the local, let's say, supply chain system, value chain, and the whole agriculture piece, and putting the two together. Then the easy part of building a world class brand, right, to support all of this, um,
The easy part.
which I at the time, I my vision was to build the Patagonia of food.
Hmm.
It was the concept was simple: to build a world class brand that would be able to transform consumers' health, farmers' life, and the planet.
Mhm.
And that's really at their heart of Jasberry, of why I created it. But this backstory that I told you, starting with my purpose, the innovation, the community, this all came together.
Yeah.
It's just all, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And so I started, working on all of those dimensions at the same time. But this
Yeah.
whole scientist thing was just crazy because I just Google him, and literally like, who's the best rice scientist on the planet? Like, I Googled
Amazing.
this, and Google at the time wasn't this smart, or we didn't have
Right.
ChatGPT, so I actually had to do a lot of reading. So like Google didn't just spit out the answer to me, right? I had to do a lot of of personal research to find out more. But yeah, it is really, when I look back, it was just a very simple question.
Mm.
And me being an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur, my role was more of creating a platform in which
Yeah.
everything can thrive.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not smart enough to invent a rice, or nowhere near his intellect level. But yeah, I'm just a lucky recipient of this great opportunity, to bring
Yeah.
something amazing to the world.
Well, brother, I'll tell you what, when you are ready to write a book or make a movie about all of that, I will definitely be buying it slash tuning in. And if we ever get the the Regen Brands Netflix series like I want to one day, we definitely have a slot for that story. Um, when you got there and you found the scientists and you had the variety, when you started thinking about commercialization, did you think about kind of the agronomic piece and how to grow it? And is there enough seed? Or did you immediately go to the brand side and start thinking about commercialization? Did you do both at the same time? Like, what was the journey to actually get to package one of Jasberry Superfood Rice?
Again, I had a really funny story for this because I was like, okay, if I'm gonna go and talk to all this community, and they already trusted me at that point because I told you I was living with them for like the
Yeah,
first 2 years, but I needed to make sure that there's a market for it, right? Like
yeah,
so at the time I didn't have a product, nothing, right? I
yeah,
just had this idea and this innovation. And so what I did was I want to take this to Whole Foods, but I had like nothing. So I remember I again I Google someone at Whole Foods,
yeah,
um, and funny story, he's still working in the industry, not in Whole Foods anymore. He was a buyer. His name
yeah.
was Dwight Richmond, and I should say his name. So Dwight was the global buyer at Whole Foods. I
Mm,
think he works for a retailer now called Town and Country, something like. Don't quote me
yeah,
on that, but in the
yeah,
national organic retailer. So, so I remember I emailed him and I called his office. Uh, he's like, "Hey, can I get like half an hour with you or something?"
yeah,
And no response, right? And I don't know how many emails I sent him, but was probably a lot. And then I lost count, and then I call and I left phone messages because he never picked up my call. So I would leave
Mhm,
these phone messages to him.
mhm,
And I remember I went to the US and I went to the Whole Foods headquarters in
mhm.
Austin. Right his way back, I was still a student, and I just started this project. And I remember I go into the Whole Foods reception at the headquarters, and I said, "I'm here to see Dwight," and they're like, "Do you have an appointment?" It's like, "No, I don't have an appointment, but um, I'm here to see him." And then they're like, "You have to step out of the building, or we're gonna call security. Like, you
Wow.
can't just come in and meet people." Um,
Mhm.
and I said, okay. So I remember I was standing outside of Whole Foods building, and I called him again, and for the first time, I pick up my call, and
Wow.
just serendipity, and and I said, hey, Dwight, I'm like I flew all the way from Thailand just to see you. It's really important. I just need like 5 minutes. As you can imagine, I have this thing going on with like asking people for 5 minutes
Yeah.
or 2 minutes or whatever
Yeah.
it
You
is.
got a good batting average. It's working out well for you so far.
and then he thinks about it. He's like, okay, meet me like outside the building 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. Like
Wow.
I'll give you like a few minutes. And I remember I cooked the rice, right? I brought like the rice so he can try it. And I even made some cold salad dishes with it. So so yeah, we met the next morning and he ate it and he's like, wow, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, just the taste and the color and the texture and everything. And I started telling him about the project and everything. And he's like, yeah, this would be a good fit at Whole Foods,
Mhm.
and he's like, show me your packaging. And I had this like mock up packaging that I got my designer friend to do in like
Yeah.
a week.
Yeah.
So it was not like the best. And I kind of show him, I had no product, right? Like nothing,
Yeah.
but I just show him this image, and he's like, "Yeah, yeah, it looked pretty good. You had to do a bit more work on it and everything." And he's like, "So when do you think you'll be ready?" And and I'm like, "Do you have organic certification?" Well, probably gonna take another year, um,
Yeah.
to get ready and everything.
Yeah.
But he was so nice, like, he sent me all this document. He's like, "Okay, these are the checklists, right? You have
Mhm.
to make sure you have, organic certification, all this kind of thing." Um, so he was, like, really instrumental in helping me understand how to get into Whole Foods when
Wow.
I didn't have a product or, brand or anything. So then I came back to Thailand with the confidence now that I'm like, okay, now I can
Yep.
get all this community to start learning how to grow this rice. And then, one day we're going to be in Whole Foods. Uh,
Mhm.
I didn't know that it would take me 7 years later to get there. I thought it would take a few years, but as
Yeah.
it turned out, there were a lot of challenges in growing this rice because
Mhm.
it's a new breed and it's not like jasmine or let's say basmati or this kind of regular rice that we see. So yeah, but basically, Whole Foods was the origin
Wow.
story of the brand piece. And
Yeah.
then, fast forward 7 years, we launched in Whole Foods nationwide, was our first major
Mhm.
retailer in the United States. So it kind of came back full circle.
Wow. That's incredible, man. Um, I do wanna talk about the specific agronomics, right? Because you just mentioned there were some challenges, and this is a different variety. So, kind of a two-part question. What were/are some of those challenges? And other than just being everything that goes into organic, what specific practices are the farmers doing that maybe is different, than just regular rice farming?
Yeah, so I think the first piece is the organic piece, which is that
Yeah,
we started following the USDA organic standard and the European Union standard for organic.
yeah.
So that was the minimum threshold for us. So obviously no use of chemicals at any point in the farming. but as I mentioned before, one of the very first co-op that I worked with was a leader in regenerative farming at the time. And so we also implemented their practices, which was beyond the organic farming.
Hmm.
We was more focused on the biodiversity in the field, having a variety of crops in the field, crop
Hmm.
rotation. So after you harvest rice, what do you grow to nourish the soil and to nourish the living organism in the soil? So we
Hmm.
actually implemented their wisdom into the practices since basically the beginning. So we
Yeah.
were doing regen organic, I guess, before we had regen organic. We didn't know what it was called because
Yeah.
I remember like when I was talking with this farmer, they were telling me about like the importance of the biodiversity to the environment, to the
Hmm.
soil, to the plant. Even the plant would have high nutrition, you would taste better, right? So
Hmm.
so there was all this knowledge that they were working on. That's the first piece. The second piece is what you asked is how to grow this new type of rice,
Yeah.
which was dark purple, and they used to growing white rice. So even from the color perspective, is very
Yeah.
different. There are many variety of the purple or black rice, but this one is obviously unique. And there were some inherent diseases that came with the rice,
Mm.
one of which made the rice grow really tall and die. Basically,
Huh.
there's a word for that disease, but so we had to find a way to combat that. So we ended up using like a bacteria to mix with the seed at the very beginning before planting, and this
Wow.
particular bacteria actually kills this DNA, I guess, of the disease.
Wow.
So, well, thank God we had this scientist who
Right.
was a genius, and he's like, "What disease?" And then
Yeah.
we're like, "Okay, this is the disease." Oh, I know the DNA of that disease.
Yeah.
I let me find the bacteria. So yeah, we had the right guy
Hmm.
to help us understand how to treat the rice, the seed, and how to breed the seed. So the scientists help teach the farmers both how to grow the rice and how to breed the seed for themselves for the future as well. So
Mm.
this took about 3 years actually, this
Yeah.
process. So it was not a short process because at the time we only grow rice once a year,
Right.
so it wasn't like it's not like coconut where you grow it every 45 days and you get a new
Yeah.
crop and it grows throughout the year. Rice is a very seasonal crop. So
Hmm.
basically a lot of the part of the country they only grow once a year. And if they have irrigation, they can grow up to twice a year. So typically this is takes longer time, right? It takes 4 months to grow the rice. And then you have to prepare, right, the seed beforehand. So it's basically like half a year, let's say. So yeah, it took us three crop to get to a place where we had high yield. But by the third year, the yield of the Jasberry superfood rice was higher than your jasmine or any white rice that you can think of. So we
Mm.
got to a point where the yield was higher, the cost was lower. Um, yeah, but that entire process that you talk about, the economics part of it is it took us three
Yeah.
years to really master.
Yeah. Thank God you had the Thai Reisenstein is what I'm going to call your rice doctor to help you through all that.
It was so funny. Like, and one of the other thing is that he does not speak the local dialect. I told you the language,
Yeah. Yeah.
and because he's a scientist,
Mm.
and I remember I brought him to meet all these farmers, and he would speak to the farmers, and they'll be blank. Like, what's he
Mm.
talking about? He's very technical, and he was explaining the rice like genomics to them, and I realized after a while that I had to be the one who talked to the farmers because
Mm.
otherwise, like nothing would get through from the communication standpoint. So in some way, I became a bridge between him and the farmer as well, from
Mhm.
let's say the more scientific standpoint of the rice itself, and that
Yeah.
was very important, I think, for the farmers to really understand uh, that.
Yeah. And I don't have the stats up in front of me, but I want to just take a second to highlight the impact you are having on the farmers and kind of come full circle back to that. You mentioned um, the average, they're making 40 cents a day in Thailand. And I believe on the website it said the farmers y'all work with make 14 times what the average farmer does. Is that's okay? You're giving me a head
Yep.
nod. And then there was
Yeah.
some other impact stats. Like share all that with us, please.
Yeah. So from 10 years ago when I started with a few families, we work with 2,500 farmers family now. That's over
Nice.
12,000 people, and their
Yeah.
income from just 40 cents a day through growing the Jasberry superfood rice, they're earning almost $6 a day, which is
Wow.
14 times higher than. And I know that $6 doesn't sound a lot, maybe to our audience, but it goes a long way if you live in rural Thailand.
It
Um,
does compared to 40 cents. It sounds like a hell of a
yeah,
lot. So that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. You can send your children to school. You can do
Yeah.
things, send your students to school, have healthcare, and all that. It's enough for that. So, yeah, it's very one of the story I share because when we talk about impact is one of the farmer we work with. For example, her name is Mema, and just 3 years ago, she had $10,000 earning 40 cents a day, having $10,000 of debt. She used
Wow.
chemical in her farm, and she has 6 acres of land. And 3 years later, she paid off all her debt. Her land has now
Wow.
doubled. She has more than 13 acres of land now. Her land is certified organic, and she had 3 children that were working at a minimum wage factory near Bangkok. They're now back on the farm working with her because for the
Hell
first time
yeah.
in their life, they have hope for a brighter future. So this is the kind of impact to each family, right? So
Mm,
the children can come back and work on the farm with them. You bring back the community and the family. As I
hmm
mentioned before, right, the younger generation don't want to be farmers. So by having this kind of project, it really beyond just the economic improvement and the elimination of poverty, it really also brings back community and family. And I really
hmm
feel very strongly about that because when you're an old farmer and you never see your children, it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking. You
Yeah.
work your ass off, you earn nothing, and you lose your family because
Yeah.
your children might come and see you once a year because they're driving taxi in Bangkok or a
Right.
motorbike taxi or their labor, workers at a factory. It's so it's really the impact is very personal to me because they kind of became my family. So these
hmm
2,500 families. I mean, I don't know every one of them anymore because it's a bit too many people. But
Yeah.
when I first started, I knew like every family, and really, it's just incredible how sometimes nowadays when I go and visit some community, they come up to me. They never met me, but
hmm
they know, oh, this is like the Jasberry guy, and they come to me and they're like tell me about their daughter graduating in a nursing school because of this project. Now she's a nurse. Like it's
hmm
such an incredible thing for me to hear this. And some of them will come to me and be like, "You're like my son."
Wow.
And I'm like, what did it do for you? And he said, well, without you, like my children wouldn't have gone to
Mm,
school. And I'm kind of getting emotional talking about this because they're such kind, wonderful human beings. These farmers, they're just the nicest people, right? For them, I think they perceive the world in a very different way to us,
yeah.
and it's just so much, I think, light and positivity and hope. And
Yeah.
I think that is something that I learned a lot from them and what they taught me and what the impact they've had on my life, right?
hmm
It arguably has been bigger than the impact that I've had on theirs. So it's a
Yeah.
two-way street.
It's beautiful, man. Farmers are the best. They're amazing. Um, I want to segue. I mean, I think it's a good segue because we're answering how can Jasberry have more impact on those lives of those farmers when we answer this question, and that's future growth. I mean, I'm sure the household penetration for this rice is still very low, right? There's a ton of opportunity for you to just drive more distribution from a doors perspective and more awareness from a marketing perspective. What is your plan for that? And are you super focused on distribution? Are you super focused on marketing? Are you got some really fun product innovation in the pipeline? Like, where's the growth strategy at, and what can you share that isn't too proprietary on that front?
Yeah, I think for us, as I mentioned before, we want to be the Patagonia of food. So there's two pieces
Mhm,
to this. The first is the distribution, as you said, and in the
mhm,
retail, I feel like we're in where we want to be.
mhm.
Um, Shout out to Wegmans; they're still taking their time,
Yeah.
but hopefully we get into Wegmans soon. And but
Come on, Wegmans. Come on.
Wegmans. Th Yeah, and they know that they love the product, and we'll just see. But I think for us, we want to have more people consume it because it's gonna change their life, right? Even their gut
Mhm.
health, their, like, just general energy and well-being. So for us, we are driving a lot in the food service, right? We are
Mm.
available now in Holy Basil, which is a restaurant in Los Angeles. They have a
Yeah,
few stores now in LA. A lot of restaurant approaching us. So we're gonna start driving the food service to get into
yeah,
restaurant, university. I know that some university inquire about like using our rice.
yeah.
Um, Schools. So really for us, like food service is very important because a lot of people don't have time to cook,
Mm.
and just the convenience piece of it, being able to go to the restaurant and having it in different ways, because the Jasper soul food fry is very versatile. So that's really what I'm working a lot on in the e-commerce, which is direct to consumer as well. So
Mhm.
I think that from a distribution standpoint, we're not gonna just keep going retail a lot because, as you well aware of, it's very expensive and
Yeah,
not financially, let's say, sustainable,
yeah,
especially for a social enterprise like ours. So this is what we're working on. And hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be in like 30, 40 restaurant in the LA, Los Angeles area.
nice.
And, we already soon going to have a local distributor in that area for the food service. So that's like the first piece. I just wanted people to experience it, to try it. To your point, most people have probably never heard of this. So I think it's really important that they understand, wow, I can eat a superfood rice, which is like
Yeah,
better than all my kind of staple food, right? It can be a foundation of your diet. It doesn't matter if you're an active person,
yeah.
you're you're an athlete, or you're just a regular person who have bad gut health. So
Mhm.
leaky gut affects 90% of American consumers. So it's
Yeah,
go on and on. It's so important. We did a research on the leaky gut, also, it took us 6 months, and now we have scientific proof that the Japanese whole food rice help with the gut lining and the
wow.
microbiome in the gut, which is amazing. You may hear of drinks
Yeah,
like Olipop, this
yeah.
prebiotic soda that is coming up. This is whole foods though. This is just
Mhm.
rice and water, not no additive, right? No chemicals. So I think it's pretty groundbreaking. On the second part, we say that we are your everyday superfood. So you
Mm.
have the superfood rice, and we're working on a few projects like superfood ramen, so that
Mm.
you can eat your ramen and can have the same superfood benefit.
Yeah,
Snack. So we work on a few categories where we bring the very same concept, and the foundation of those products are based on this Jazzy superfood rice as a raw ingredient.
yeah,
So
yeah.
everything is
Well,
purple,
yeah.
basically.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing those when they come to market, and I can see the TikTok girlies now posting their videos about the superfood rice. So I love kind of the food service play, especially in those key markets that you probably have retail distribution to kind of help those feed off each other and grow awareness and grow consumption and help people feel better and help farmers make more money. I mean, that's a win-win-win-win. So I love that. Neil, I'm curious if this whole tariff situation has greatly affected your business. I would assume it has. And if it's not a super fun conversation, feel free to move us to the next topic. But I do think it's important to talk about if you're willing and open to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's affected the whole world. I
Yeah.
mean, for us, we are exporting from Thailand to United States because we produce
Mhm.
the rice here in Thailand. We got hit with an extra 19%. So whatever tariff we were paying is
Yeah.
additional 19%,
Right.
which would wipe out most businesses, by the way, in food because you just don't have much margin. So you
Yeah.
have options. You pass the cost on to the consumer, right? And then you pass it on to the distributor like UNFI, KH, they pass it on to the consumer.
Hmm.
And then the cost of living will go up by like not 19 because when people think about it, 19 is just at the port. Then
Hmm.
everyone else like UNFI adds their own margin. So it's
Right.
multiplied. So by the time it hit the shelf, I'm probably talking at like a 35% increase.
Ah.
And do I want to do that to the consumer right now? No. So I
Mhm.
work with our importer and we're taking a financial hit right now
Mhm.
because we want the American consumers to keep being able to buy something affordable. Not that
Yeah.
price in as a product, even our product is still cheap compared to other category like coffee, quinoa. We talk about other superfood, right? Like
Mhm.
share seeds and whatnot, but it's still like I'm a really big believer that as a brand, we want health to be is health is should be people's right,
Yeah.
right? Consumers shouldn't have to suffer by eating something healthy and delicious, right? Like
Right.
that. If you have to go to McDonald's to save money, there's something wrong with the world, right? Like I'm a big believer because you are what you eat. So so it affects us in so many ways. And if we end up getting cancer or diabetes, it ruins our quality of life, right?
Yeah.
Not just the economics of it, but the quality of it. And I feel really strongly about um like having that giving the opportunity to consumers to consume something affordable that is amazing for their health and that is delicious. And in the meantime with the tariff, we're doing the best that we can to hold this price. And I'm probably soon going to get on a call with Whole Foods to discuss kind of the future.
Mhm.
Inevitably, though, if the tariff doesn't go away, then no one will have a choice but to increase.
Right.
And for us, we definitely not doing that this year. But as a
Mhm.
small company, how much financial
Yeah.
hit can we take? Um, so it's just one of those things where I'm very sad for the American consumers because
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where it's not needed. Like
Mhm.
for example, you guys don't grow enough rice anyway, and then you
Right.
also don't grow. By the way, the rice that you grow in the United States is subsidized by the government. So the
Mm.
government subsidizes industry for what? Right?
Mm.
Just to be semi-competitive. Now you have other crops that you grow well, like because of the weather. So people should focus on growing what is good in the soil, in the environment, right? And because different countries like Brazil is good with coffee, and now they're getting hit with 50% tariff coffee, I mean, to United States, and
Yeah.
you're gonna see that in Starbucks and everywhere. So I think just as conceptually with the tariff, for us, we try to do the best we can, but I think long term, I don't think it's sustainable for the American economy. And at some
Yeah.
point, something has got to give, right? I don't think consumers will be happy paying, I don't know what the number was, $3,000 more for grocery per year. An
Right.
average people who shop in Walmart. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of grocery
Yeah.
so I think that I still have a belief that the tariff will not sustain long term
Yeah.
for the economy.
Well, I'm sorry you're dealing with that. I appreciate you sharing very transparently with us about it. And it sounds like you're being very intentional and thoughtful about how you're handling it. And I'm sure it's a giant challenge. So yeah, I mean, it's disappointing to see the effect it's having just overall and also in the industry with the people that we work with, like yourself. And hopefully it is remedied sooner rather than later, like you said. Um, I I do want to ask specifically about this whole regenerative thing and how you and the company are thinking about that. I don't believe there's any certification on products or any product claims. It sounds like what you're doing is very clearly regenerative. Do you see that as an opportunity? Is that not something you're really interested in exploring? Do you think the term is kind of a worthwhile marketing claim that's going to have real consumer demand? Have retailers asked you about adding it? Like where are you sitting with this whole regen thing right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, we've been doing regenerative organic for the
Yeah.
last 10 years. So
Right.
for us, it's a natural, I guess, extension. I guess you can say certification.
Yeah.
It just comes down more to the economics of it. And so we
Yeah.
had a conversation with Whole Foods since last year because they asked us like, are you gonna do regen? And I'm
Mhm.
like, we are regen. I mean, you mean you want us to do a certification? And they, yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
So we reached out to the regenerative organic certified, like the certification body,
Mhm.
and we actually did initial testing with they have this test on biodiversity in the soil and whatnot, and we passed all the tests. So which is not, I guess a big surprise, but because of all the paperwork and the audit that needs to be done, we will complete the certification probably the second half of next year. So we
Okay.
are in the process of being regenerative organic certified.
Yeah.
Uh, but it just because we only grow once a year, and
Yeah.
like all the paperwork that needs to go into, but we already
Yeah.
prepared the farmers for it, and we have already started doing documentation and uh, giving the data, or you know getting the data that they need from us. And but yeah, we
Yeah.
did some soil sampling, some biodiversity tests that they already look at that data, and that there's really no concern for us. So yeah, it just added, I guess, more paperwork to
Yeah.
the to the process. But I think in practice, it's not. I think maybe there was only one practice that they asked for that
Mhm.
I guess wasn't implemented 100%. It was more to do with the barrier. Like they
Okay.
wanted more kind of free barrier between certain crop.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I think overall, next year we will be regenerative organic certified at some point, probably later in the year, and then we'll start using the logo on the products
Nice.
next
Love
year.
that. Well, excited to see that, and I also, like you said, I know the administrative and just the financial cost of that while you're dealing with trying to grow a young brand, while you're dealing with tariffs, while you're dealing with, commercializing a brand new varietal of rice. So, like, I appreciate your willingness and commitment to that, and it further, I think, validates our work to try and make that claim and this term more valuable for all of the businesses like yours, so that it's all worthwhile and it actually has some real ROI. So, good segue into our final question, which is the one we kind of wrap every episode with. Neil, what do we need to do to have regen brands have 50% market share by 2050?
Well, I guess a simple one word answer would be branding, because
Mhm.
ultimately, and I think storytelling. I think
Yeah.
with TikTok and these other platforms, we need people to tell the story about why should we care. Because
Yep.
one of the ways that we say a Jasperry big chain starts with a tiny grain of rice. Like
Yep.
consumers have so much power nowadays, right? They get to choose what they buy, right? Because they can buy online, they can buy anywhere, they have access, unlike 10, 20 years ago. And I really believe that a lot of people care. And I think one of the feeling that we have as a society today is just hopelessness, right? We see what's going on in the world. We see the war. we see this political turmoil, we
Yeah.
see poverty, and sometimes we feel helpless. But I
Yeah.
think this regenerative movement can be something where consumer can say, you know what, if I just make my daily choices, right, with regenerative brands, that's
Mhm.
my part in changing the world. And I think
Mhm.
that people don't understand how important that is. And I think that the right storytelling, whether it's through TikTok or something where it can reach the more masses of people in a way that resonates with people emotionally would be really important. Because just we need to get people to understand and care about this. And we have seen that kind of, I guess, campaign throughout history, whether it was with the dairy milk industry,
Mhm.
whether it was all kind of things. So I think that there's definitely an opportunity there just for this generation, right? The people under the age of 30 who are
Yeah.
growing up with a very different world with AI and everything, really to understand this is one of the core, right, future of humanity. This
Mm.
is as important as AI is to our future.
Mm.
Agriculture, for me, is more important because it's our lives. It's what we
Mhm.
eat. We're not going to eat AI. I hope
Right.
not. Um,
Right.
and I
I
hope
don't know
AI
how
is
we
not going to
would.
be making my food.
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
So as much as we want to ignore, I mean, food is the foundation of our lives, is the foundation of communities. 500 small scale farmers in the planet, 500 million, sorry, 500 million small scale farmers still exist on the planet, most
Yeah.
of which live in deep poverty.
Yeah.
So we can't ignore that. I think the regenerative movement is so important because it connects the consumer to the farmer and the planet, and it nourishes all three. Right? It changes all three for the better. And I think if we don't have that alignment, to your point, hopefully 50% by 2050, then we're looking at a planet that is going to be heavily damaged, which will cause degradation to the air quality, to the water quality, to other things that is going to affect us, which is already affecting us. So I think it's just one of those things where how do we make that more just tangible to people? And I think that's a challenge for the storyteller. And we need more, I think, of those people in this area where they're just great storyteller. That to your point, right? We have Netflix documentary
Yeah.
with Chris Hemsworth, uh,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
someone of that caliber that really cares, right? We need
Yeah.
also whether it's a celebrity or I don't want to use the word influencer, but
Yeah.
like it has to be this collective understanding of where we're heading, because ultimately, as a race, right, humanity, we have much more in common. And as
Mhm.
much as we fight about, right, what we see today, whether it's politics or war or power or money, ultimately, like food connect all of us. And
Mhm.
it's agriculture, I mean, the soil, it connect us. And I think it's something that with regenerative is very, very important. That is that connection back to our root. And I think without that alignment, then the future generation will face a really bleak like future when it comes to food and agriculture, and and that they won't be able to fix that quickly,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not like technology. If you destroy the soil, right, it
Mhm.
takes years. You destroy the environment of biodiversity, it takes decades. So it
Yeah.
it it really like it's not a quick fix, and that's why there has to be a long term plan. But also, I think for consumers, they have to wake up too about what they eat and
Yeah.
the impact of what they choose to eat, right? And the products they choose to buy, the brand they choose to support. Because ultimately, that's the capitalism, right? Like you need like brands like us need to survive, and the only way we survive is with consumers.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I love that answer, man. It's a perfect full circle answer because you were an incredible storyteller this whole episode. So the fact that you led with storytelling, I think, is accurate and just a good microcosm of the episode overall. And I think like what you were saying, I couldn't agree with more. We've done a decent job of like telling the world or trying to tell the world why this matters in the macro. We're moving into, I think, the two more important steps or the two next logical steps, which are why you, the individual person, should care, what's in it for you, and what you actually can do. Like, I think those three steps is kind of where we've struggled so far and where we have the greatest strides to make, and also where the greatest effect of outcome in terms of like ROI for the people that are doing the work, both on the ground and in the brands and all the other facets that bring those products to market. And I agree with you on the like places we're showing up. We need to show up more in the most public, most visible, highest audience, and most viral places, which I'm even thinking about that for our platforms and what we're doing, because I don't know if we've done an amazing job of that to date, but especially on the consumer facing side with what we're doing with the trade association and the coalition and all of the brands and their individual marketing. I'm looking forward to the first big viral thing that's regenerative, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen soon, and we need to make sure it happens. So yeah, man, this has been great. Really appreciate the time. Thanks for carving out some time in a very early morning where you're at, and just appreciate all that you're doing. And thanks for spending some time with me.
I really appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. We always behind the regenerative movement, and anything that we can do to help, we will, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Anthony.
For transcripts, show notes, and more information on this episode, check out our website, regen-brands.com. That is regen-brands.com. You can also check out our YouTube channel, Regen Brands, for all of our episodes with both video and audio. The best way to support our work is to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, the Regen Brands Weekly, and follow our Regen Brands LinkedIn page to stay in the know on all the latest news, insights, and perspectives from the world of regenerative CPG. Thanks so much for tuning into the Regen Brands podcast. We hope you learned something new in this episode, and it empowers you to use your voice, your time, your talent, and your dollars to help us build a better and more regenerative food system. Love you guys.